When it feels like you're hitting wall after wall, you've tried and you've cried and you've given your all and you're going berserk because nothing will work. You fasted and prayed. You're confused and dismayed because the answers won't come after all that you've done. When you're out of ideas and hope disappears, take cheer, my dear. Set aside your fear. It's not a failure. It's a new frontier. What to do when it's not working is our topic today on the pod. Buckle up, baby. It's going to be good like God.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Kingdom Builders Academy podcast. So good to be back with you today. And we are talking about a very important topic. If you've been in business, if you've even just done life, you know what it's like for things to not go right. So today's topic is what to do when it's not working. There's a lot to unpack here. This could be another multi-parter, but Coach Tam, let me pass it off to you to kick us off with this.
Well, I'd like to just say on this topic, what to do when it's not working. Before I tell you what I do, and before my co-host share some ideas and strategies with you, I would like to just suggest to you that very often when it's not working, and as we said in the intro, you've tried and you've cried and you're going berserk because nothing will work. You fasted and prayed, and it's still not working. I want to suggest to you that what you should not do is to continue doing all the things that you've been doing. If it didn't work before, if it didn't work when you tried it and you tried it and you tried it, don't keep trying to do it that way. You're going to have to make some kind of shift. And what I've noticed in business, Zack, is that even when something is really going well, the tendency is that it is not going to go well forever. Whatever you're doing, it will have diminishing returns, and you're going to have to mix it up. You're going to have to change. And you know, change is inevitable. It is. Sometimes we choose to change, and sometimes change is thrust upon us. But when you're experiencing this circumstance of nothing just is working, and maybe it worked before, but it's not working now, I would like to suggest to you that very often God uses those kinds of circumstances to move us in a new direction. Very often, especially with financial issues, okay? And listen, before I go on, I want to ask our live audience right now, is there something in your life, and would you be okay to share, that's not working, that you've tried and you failed and you failed, and it just doesn't seem to be working in some area of your life? What is that? I mean, it might be relationally, it might be in your marriage, it might be in your health, it might be in your business and your finances. Okay, so I'm starting to see a couple of answers come in. Courtney says her Facebook group isn't working, and Doc says health is an issue. Well, here's the thing, is that God often directs us. God often directs us through those speed bumps, those obstacles in the road, those, what looks like I ought to just quit. I don't think quitting is the answer. I think sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that's God's way of telling you, okay, this is not working and it's never going to work, but you're going to have to shift in some way. And I think that it's important to recognize the hand of God in it. You know, the hand of God is not always success after success. If you read scripture at all, you see that the greatest success stories, the people that we consider our heroes of the faith, they very often were dealing with trial after trial and failure after failure. And that is a part of life, but it's also part of the way that God directs us.
Yeah, so true. And Coach Tam, I would just piggyback on that. When something's not working, like that's probably the key point, is like we can't just necessarily keep banging our head against the wall doing the same thing, expecting something to change, right? It's like that classic definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. A way that I heard it put recently that I think is really good is whenever you've got a challenge in business, in life, and it's just not working, there's probably like two good responses and one bad response. The two good responses is to push or to pivot, right? Because sometimes we just need to give it time. Like we need to not despise the day of small beginnings and look at the process. And is the process good? Is the process sound? Do I see this process leading to a good result? And if so, we see a future and we see that like, hey, I just need to like process, continue what I'm doing. Then, hey, there's a season to push and there's obstacles that we need to just push through. And then there's other ones that we need to pivot. And I think, a real skill that we need to hone spiritually is to discern the times. And maybe, honey, in a minute, I'll pass it to you and you can kind of speak to that of like discerning the times. When is it a season to push? When is it a season to pivot? But the third option, which is the like bad one every time, is to coast, is to kind of just mail it in. Just say it is what it is. I better just cope with this. I had like a framework I really liked a long time ago that whenever we face a mountain, whenever we face a giant, we always have three choices: to grow, cope, or run away. And I just want to have the mindset that I'm going to grow, because in business, in life, we're going to probably face more things that don't work than work. That's been my experience in business. Of all the things we've tried, of all the marketing, of all the launches, of all the products, of all the ideas, more things don't work than work. So just a side principle, one of the best things you can do in business is when you do have something that works, like double down, optimize, make that one thing that is working work better and better, and just lean into that. If you try 5 things and one of them works, that's normal, right? Just do that one thing again and again and again. So, honey, let me pass it off to you on whatever's on your heart. But, I just think that that's such an important thing that maybe you could speak to, is how to discern the times and the seasons.
Well, as my mother-in-law would say, I've got things to say. I have words to say. So Zacky had asked me, we call him Zacky, so now that's revealed. Sorry about that. But he said, what do you think we should talk about? And I said, I think we should I just kind of blurted it out. Let's talk about what to do when what you're doing is not working. And you know what? I have a few things. Number one, stop, drop, and roll. And I have a really funny thing. My mother-in-law's husband, Matt Phillips, who I call Maddie, is one of my favorite people on the planet. Okay. He is one of my absolute favorite people on the planet. And I'm going to tell you something that she told me that the two of them say when things are not going so great, and you are going to love it. So just stay where you're at. Okay. Don't go anywhere. So I was thinking stop, drop, and roll. And I'm going to let my co-host here kind of breathe into this, because it isn't just defined by how I interpret it. But this is what I think. And here's the analogy that goes with it. I wanted to learn how to ski. I wanted to learn how to ski so bad. And do you know what it's like to go somewhere where people are doing something and you think, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. And someone says, you could do that. And you go, I could. And they go, you can. And all of a sudden you have a little boost of confidence and you think, I am going to ski. And you get all the equipment. You even buy some of your own equipment. You rent some equipment. You watch some YouTube videos and you're like, this mountain is mine, baby. And you get out there and that mountain takes you and paddles you on the bottom and spits you out and says, come back again when you're ready. And so I had this experience with skiing. Okay. I wanted to ski. I rented the things. I didn't even grow up in a cold weather climate. And I got out on that mountain and it just did paddle me on the bottom and it's pushed me down the mountain. It said, listen, we appreciate people like you, but come back when, you're really, really ready and prepared. And I felt discouraged, because I thought, what am I going to do? But let me just tell you, this stop, drop, and roll process was really good for me, because I really kind of thought, maybe skiing isn't going to be for me. Maybe it's not. I had taken private lessons. I had taken group lessons. I was having I call it thigh burn. Okay. Thigh burn. My thighs were on fire. I had shooting pains in my calves. My toes were crippling up on me. I thought, this is not working for all of the wrong reasons. And so I think I might have to hang up my skis before I even win my gold medal. But instead, I stopped And what I'm encouraging you to do is to stop, drop, and roll. When everything feels like it's coming against you, or the thing that you've been doing isn't working, all the things that Coach Zack and Coach Tam talked about in your brand, your business, your ministry, even in your life, in your marriage, with your kids, it's okay to stop. And I don't mean stop as in quit. I mean, like, stop the presses, like stop. We're not going to continue rolling on, which is what Coach Tam said in the beginning. We are going to hit pause because something isn't working, whether it's my message, whether it's the way I'm delivering it, whether I've chosen an avatar, but it's not quite right for me. Whatever's going on, it's okay to just hit stop. But drop accusing yourself, drop allowing all the open doors where, like, I wasn't meant to do this. I wasn't made to ski. I'm not good enough to ski. I'm too old to ski. I should have started skiing when I was 10 or when I was 3, when these 3-year-olds are flying down the hill at 40 miles an hour. Drop all the accusations. Drop even accusing yourself where you missed it and, you should have done this or you should have done that. Drop it all. Don't even allow the enemy of your soul to have a role in accusing you or disqualifying you or allowing you to be disoriented. You got to drop all of that, because if you want to fix this, if you really want to get on the mountain and you want to make it down and you want to be a skier, you're going to have to accept there's going to be some challenges, and stopping along the way is just part of the process. So we're going to stop because this just isn't working, and that's okay. Stopping doesn't mean quitting, okay? Just because we put on the brakes doesn't mean we've actually lost momentum. Drop all the fears, drop all the negativity, just let it go. You don't actually have to find fault, right? And sometimes I think when something's not working, we want to find a way to lay responsibility or blame somewhere, whether it's on us or something else. You don't have to do that. You don't have to expend all that energy trying to find where you're going to put the blame. Drop all of that and then roll. And this is the story I wanted to tell you, where I heard my mother-in-law talking when we were just recently on a ski trip with her husband, Maddie. And I laughed so hard on the inside. And I thought, this is honestly brilliant. And I think this speaks much to her credit as to who she is today. So they were talking about when something's not going right, or, they're having a difficulty, that they would say, no bad idea is off the table. Like anything you've got, any ideas you've got, the good ones, the bad ones, the crazy ones, the things that we think will never work. And I was thinking about how when we see it in epic stories, in movies, in books, in heroes' journeys, it's always the wild, wacky, unsuspected thing that someone goes, you know what if we do this? And people go, well, that'll never work. And voila. So I love the way that Coach Tam and her husband, that conversation, it really spoke to me, because I thought that made me think about skiing. And you know what I did? I marched my little bum into the ski boot place and I said, I need help. And I have thigh burn and my toes are crippled and I have feet pain and calf pain, and can you do something for me? And they said, well, we can. And I had never even thought about going to the place where I got my boots, because I just figured it's me, not the boots. I'm the problem. It is my inability to swish and swerve and lean in, lean away and do all the things. But the guy said, did you know we could reshape the inside of your boot? Did you know that we could do this and we could do that? And he did all these things, and he took my boots away and he put my boots back on my feet, and voila. Did you know all my foot pain went away and my toes weren't crippled anymore? And all of a sudden I was a whole new person. I had a fresh perspective. I had new hope, vim and vigor to get out on that mountain. And I ended up having one of the best times on the mountain. And Coach Tam and her husband, Maddie, was there to see it. And it changed everything for me. So I just want to encourage you that whether you do push or whether you do pivot, at the end of the day, if you will just be willing to say, hey, guess what? Sometimes things like this happen, but we're gonna regroup, we're gonna circle the wagons. And I would say this too: don't do it alone. Now, you can do it with the wrong group of people or have the wrong people speaking into your life, and that could make it worse. But I am telling you what, people, if you will just get good people. Bunny told me, Coach Tam said, you're going to do great. You can ski. You were made for this. And I just thought, I looked at her like, I don't think so, and meanwhile, she's making all this progress skiing and doing amazing. And I thought,
I'm so sad because I really wanted to be able to ski and I don't think it's going to work out. But you know what? I had the right people around me. I had people around me who encouraged me, who spoke life into me, who gave me solutions I hadn't even thought of. So I would just encourage you, don't do it alone. Get people around you who see things from a different perspective, people who believe in you, people who have, kind of creative mindsets that may have ideas and ways of seeing and doing things that you haven't seen before. But above all else, don't lose hope. Do not lose hope. Keep hope alive. Jesus is hope personified. And if you give up, I would say that's the only thing is if you just quit, if you just give up, that's going to be the nail in the coffin. But if you just won't quit, even if you have to stop, drop, and roll, you've got to push or you've got to pivot, just keep moving forward, because I promise you, God is with you and for you, and it's all going to come together. It might not look like the way you thought it would. It might take longer than you thought. It might, take more than you had expected, but all of that was meant to be for your good in the end. So I would say stop, drop, and roll. Don't do it alone, and keep your hope alive.
Amen. Amen.
I love it so much. And, this
I did not speak to discerning the times. I'm so sorry. I'll throw that back to you guys.
No, that was great. That was great, Annie. Thank you. Yeah, what comes to mind for me in this whole discussion that I hope it does for you who are listening is to be encouraged. Like what to do when it's not working. Like we talked about the real practical, tactical of like, this is how you've got to respond. Another way that you've got to respond is to encourage yourself. This is one of just the great principles is to encourage yourself in the Lord. We had John Maxwell on recently for an interview that we did for our students. And, I asked him that question about like, what do you do when you're in the hard seasons, the dark seasons, the challenging times? And he said, you've got to be your own best friend. Just like Jillian talked about, like you've got to be around the right people who are going to encourage you. Make sure you're also that right kind of person that's going to encourage yourself. I read biographies a lot. They're kind of my favorite reading is to read like presidential biographies and entrepreneur biographies. And what I've come to realize is the reason that I like it so much is because I like to see their struggles and to see the suffering that they go through, not in like, a sadistic kind of way, but because it puts my suffering in perspective. Like the greatest people that have walked the earth and done the greatest things, they have suffered the most. Let's just look at Jesus. He did the greatest things. He suffered the most. People who do, like greatness and suffering, you can't separate them. You can't have greatness without suffering. So if you want a great life, a great relationship, a great business, there's going to be suffering. Like that's just inevitable. They come together. But so it's like, how are we going to handle that? How are we going to, keep the faith? And how are we going to keep proper perspective? Because on the other side of like the greatest suffering, last night I was up in bed reading John Adams, this biography that Jillian got me for Christmas. That's great. He was literally on his deathbed in Holland, completely despair, like basically like got malaria or something, but it was largely because, his immune system probably just shut down because he was so depressed about how bad his mission was going. Like he was there as like a special envoy and it was not working out. He'd been away from home for 2 years and he basically was on his deathbed. He was unconscious for like 5 or 6 days in like a deep, deep depression, deep sickness. And then just like a month or two later, he got word that like they'd won the war, that they had won the Revolutionary War, and that now the Netherlands was going to recognize the United States. And now John Adams is a celebrated hero in Europe after being like a pariah in Europe. And it's just the what comes to mind for me is that there's just the suffering's inevitable. The struggle's inevitable. The challenges are inevitable. Things not working is inevitable. So this topic is so important because it's like, what do you do? What do you do when it's not working? And half of it is tactical, practical. Like, yeah, you got to make some changes. You got to push or pivot. You got to get the right people around you. But the other half of it is just recognizing this is par for the course. This is just how it goes. This is just what happens. And this is what separates the wheat from the chaff. This is what separates the winners from the losers in business. This is what separates the winners from losers in every area is, can you face the difficulty? Can you face the suffering and push through, pivot out of it, reorient, reorganize, encourage yourself in the Lord, be your own best friend, do something. Doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing is mailing it in. It's quitting. It's surrendering to the battles that you're facing.
Very good word. And I love you guys for telling stories and telling personal stories and sharing the wisdom that you've learned through, in a way, very basic situations, whether that's skiing or whatever. I'll tell you a story now. This is from many years ago, even before Zachary was born. I was experiencing a lot of financial problems in my business, and I was dealing with a lot of money. And when you're dealing with a lot of money, financial problems are really super scary. And at the time, I was working with a lot of great leaders and great celebrities. And one of them was Pastor Robert Schuller, Dr. Robert Schuller, who founded the Crystal Cathedral, founding pastor of the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California, one of the original mega churches. And he had a unique vibe and style. Maybe he was a bit of the precursor of somebody like Joel Osteen, for instance. He had a way of inspiring people in very practical ways that really had not been seen before. And I said to him, Dr. Schuller, I know that your ministry is huge and the numbers are huge. Your television program is going around the world. But I know that it can't have always been peaches and cream. Like there's got to be times where you faced problems. Now, Dr. Schuller was known for the phrase possibility thinking, like think about all the possibilities that there are. And so I asked him this question. I said, what do you do when you are experiencing financial problems? And what do you do? And I thought he would say something like, well, I think about all the possibilities of other things that I can do that would help. But that's not what he said. He didn't talk about possibilities. He talked about pruning. He talked about pruning and purging. And he said, well, when I face financial challenges, he said, I start pruning and pruning and pruning, lopping off here, lopping off there. And he said, and I will prune and prune and prune until the fruit comes again, until I see things blossoming again. And I thought about when I was a teenager that my neighbor had a rose garden, and she was older and she was not tending to her rose garden. And as a result, it was a bunch of dead, dried up flowers on the bushes all around the side of her house. So I asked her, would it be okay with you if I took care of your rose garden? And she was very happy about that. And so I went out and I cut off all the dead flowers. And a couple weeks later, just bursts of color, right? So we don't often think about this, but it is something to consider is where are the areas that are not producing fruit? Where are the areas that are producing fruit? And like Zack said at the beginning, double down on those things that are working and cut off some of the things that aren't working. It's like you've got to sometimes subtract so that you can be added to. And on that same note, I'll tell you this, is that I'm staying in a beautiful penthouse right now that overlooks the mountain of Beaver Creek. It's the nicest view, big vaulted ceilings, huge view. The view wraps around. And I said to the guy who rented it to me, I actually got married at another one of his condos. And I said to him, I really like this area. I've come back to this area a lot. My whole family now is getting into skiing. And I've thought about the amount of money that I've put into just renting places this ski season. And I've considered buying here. And I said, if I did buy here, since I wouldn't be here a lot of the year, I would probably like to rent it out. And I said, now, I want you to know that I'm a coach and I believe in coaching. I sincerely believe in coaching. If ever I want to learn anything, I am going to get a coach. I'm going to hire somebody to mentor me and somebody to instruct me, because the cost of ignorance is way more than the cost of education. So upgrade your skill set when things aren't working. And I said to him, if I do this, if I decided to invest in a property, I said, I know that you manage and you own dozens of properties and you do it very successfully. I said, could I hire you to be my coach? And he stopped and he thought about it for a second. And he said, well, if you don't steal all my business, I guess I could do that for you. Right. And I said, well, I'm just thinking about one property. I won't be stealing a whole lot of your business. But I just really would encourage you that if it's not working for you, find somebody that it is working for, find a proven model, find a system, find a community, find a coach that knows what they're doing and go to them. And, in our community, we coach thousands of people. We have thousands and thousands of success stories, testimonials that knock your socks off. Why? Because these people were willing to invest in themselves. They were willing to upgrade their skill set, to learn some things that they didn't know prior. And then once they utilize those new skills, they find that, hey, what wasn't working, guess what? It's working now, right? So I would strongly encourage you, and it's very counterintuitive. Since we're skiing, I'm going to use another ski analogy, is when people are learning how to ski, it's most natural to pull back. I mean, when you're heading straight down a mountain, you want to pull back. But if you do that, you will fall. That's the bottom line. So you have got to lean into the mountain. And when things aren't working, it's a natural tendency to hold back and go, oh, I don't want to let go of any money. I don't want to invest anything because things aren't working now. I really can't afford to do this. No, you can't afford not to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to invest in yourself. You've got to go to people who know what they're doing, who know more than you, who can teach you how to do it the right way. So I would strongly encourage you to add to yourself people who know what they're doing, mentors, coaches, experts, and pay them. Pay them. It is a whole lot more cost effective for you to pay somebody to teach you how to do it so that it will produce fruit than it is for you to try and figure things out on your own.
100%. Good word, Coach Tam. Good word. Well, love this episode. Really, really rich content, as our people are saying here in the chat. So love this time with you guys. Love you. Bless you. We'll see you next week on the KBA podcast. Bye, everyone.